Yes, welcome to the Biz Communication Show. I'm your host, Bill Lampton, the Biz Communication Guy, welcoming once again, as I do every week, a business communication expert so that you and I can hear tips and strategies that will boost our business. Coming to us today as our guest from Edmonton, Alberta, Canada, Sharon MacLean, an experienced businesswoman, digital communication strategist, blogger, and contributing author to the Amazon bestseller, Build to Grow. As owner and publisher of a noted magazine for 21 years, Sharon created content with forward-thinking solutions. An early adopter of social media, she positioned the magazine online in 2008 using Twitter, Facebook, LinkedIn, and automated email marketing. Most recently, Sharon brought together a bank of experts to develop high performers for the hybrid workforce, the name Virtual Conference Mastery. Today, she helps savvy business owners find their way through the maze of social enterprise. And my gosh, how much we need that. Her expertise and professional leadership brought her the Global Television's Women of Vision Award. So I know that you will want to join me now in welcoming Sharon MacLean. Hi, Sharon.
Hey, Bill.
Terrific to have you with us today on the Biz Communication Show. And I want to start with a very logical starting point, and that is that you, as a marketing expert, have watched many people who sort of try to go it on their own, maybe by the seat of their pants, as we'd say in the United States, without much outside help or training or expertise. So when we do that, what do you think are one or two of the common marketing mistakes that we make or are likely to make? And looking at those mistakes, what should we be doing instead, Sharon?
Oh, such a terrific question to start off with, Bill. And I want to say I am so honored to join you here and talk to you about communications, which I can do all day long. But two types of challenges that I think I see on a regular basis, both for smaller companies, entrepreneurs, startups, as well as more mature companies who are dealing with communications internally. So the first one I want to say is the perfection, the pursuit of perfection when it comes time to getting out our messages. And I can see time after time again the laborious nature of people who need to find the absolute correct word, perhaps, the sentence, the structure of a paragraph, and or the messaging, which we want to spend more time on. We'll talk about that later, I think. But the perfection of, or the pursuit of perfection of getting out their content and then sitting on that content until they get it just right in their own minds and maybe for other people within the organization. So we don't get to see what it is they need to see, and we don't get to work out the challenges or the mistakes, not necessarily the mistakes or the vagaries of the communication. We can work that out as we go along and improve our copy, our words, our meanings, the clarity of our messages as we go along. So get that copy out, get those messages out early on, and then find out where there are holes, make the adjustments, and pivot and carry on.
Sharon, you remind me so much of the coaching that I give to my speech coaching clients, because they too make the mistake of seeking perfection and downgrading themselves and getting in a very bad mood. And as you say, even delaying things because they're trying to be perfect. And one way I go about keeping them from maintaining that attitude, I hand them a page of tips to begin with when we start our coaching. I put on there, don't try to be perfect, and I purposely misspell the word perfect. I just botch it very, very badly, but they can still see what I meant and they get the point. you can get your point across without being perfect. And something else that fits in here, which I imagine you tell your clients, as I tell my speech coaching clients, we often fret so much about what we left out. The good news is nobody knows what you leave out, do they?
Exactly right. The authors of the message or the owners of the new product or the new company, they know their company so well, and they think everybody else does as well. They really don't. So anything that we can get out to shed some light on our vision is going to help. Yeah.
So get going, get the message out
Get
there.
going.
Don't just spend month after month after month editing and rewriting and assigning it to committees and all those mistakes that people make. Okay, mistake number one you mentioned in marketing that many of us will make if we don't have an expert like you guiding us. What would be another one?
Second thing is, this is for the more mature company where there are perhaps several departments or branches involved. And that is the confused message. So merchandising has one message that they are releasing. Sales has another message that they have worked out. And marketing has a third message. And goodness knows people in the C-suite have their own show going on. And once we get those messages all confused, people within the branches, employees everywhere, forget your customers and your prospects and your shareholders. People inside the company don't know what the correct story is because there's so many variations. So I really like to say and caution that get that branded message sorted out and then tweak it for the different audiences, for the different departments. So I would say a confused messaging is something to avoid.
Reminds me of what one of my mentors has said many times: a confused buyer never buys.
I know when I go into a coffee shop, I just really simply order, I order the same type of coffee that I'm comfortable with. I do not want 30 different choices. So I've distilled it down to the most simple decision for myself. Now imagine if that little coffee boutique is a large organization. The confusion for that customer is going to have them walk away. You're right, Bill. Yeah.
Let's go back to your 21 years as a magazine publisher owner. You, of course, have for decades been engaged in professional writing. As I work with organizations, I still find that the very basics of writing, good, clear writing, are not there. And I'm thinking about instructions, how often a manager will send out a memo or an email with instructions, and it's quite imprecise and nobody really knows what it means. So let's take a minute to think about your skills as a writer. If you're talking to a manager and you're trying to coach that manager to improve writing skills, what do you tell them, or what type of drills do you go through to help them get to that prose that not only is clear, but can even energize people?
You know, this is such a touchy subject, Bill, for me personally. For example, I'm joining a lot of these, and we all do, we're all on these technology platforms, and there's the instructions that come along with the platform. And I cannot understand what it is that they're trying to get across to me, and they don't provide a telephone number for additional clarity. So the language reaching me from that manager who's been assigned the job of writing some information to guide me through is not getting through to the customer, who is me. So a first step, I think, for a manager that you've asked about in a company is I really want to remind them that their product, their company, their service is just, it's not about you. It's about the customer. And I know that you've got this wonderful product to get across to me, and goodness knows you've probably spent years perfecting that product, and it's truly imaginative. But have you thought about whether or not I care? And so if you don't know what I care about in terms of my needs or my solutions when I'm in your industry looking for a service or a product, then you might miss the boat very easily. So there's a lot of debate going on, I noticed today, about whether we understand the persona well enough to, and that typically is the first place to start, understand our buyer persona or our employee well enough to reach a message, or to get that, create the content and get that out to that shareholder or that stakeholder. So I'm going to say the first thing is, remember, it's not about you. The second thing is, remember your words. Words inform every medium that we are using, whether it's a memo, Bill, or whether it's TikTok, or whether it's a video production. Words still matter. And if we get clear in our head what it is that we need to say to that person that we really need to clearly reach, we will have a fighting chance of reaching them.
One comment I want to make there is that what you're saying about the manager, the supervisor, the CEO, the department head, every one of them needs to do what, in fact, someone who's going to speak to an audience does, and that's audience analysis. You can't just write from the silence, the privacy, and the solitude of your office and think you're going to get something across. You've got to know the audience, and that's a primary point, whatever method of communication you're using, right?
I mean, that's exactly right. And then to understand what type of content will match the person that you are trying to reach. Is it really an email, or perhaps is it an e-guide? Do we need a white paper, or do we just need perhaps a video? Can we get our messages across better using video? So really understand the format that is going to reach that individual better. And then
Sharon, this reminds me of something you and I discussed a couple of weeks ago. And I'm thinking of Marshall McLuhan, because he's said decades ago what you're saying now, that the medium is the message. And I know you and I had just a little bit of chance to talk about Marshall McLuhan. Back in the mid to late 1960s, he was the international guru of communication. What is it that Marshall McLuhan and his messages and his approach, what is it that you benefited the most from learning?
You just said it. The medium is the message. You know, Marshall McLuhan was born in 1911. That's 110 years ago, Bill. And when he came out with that concept, the medium is the message, it's still true today, and probably even more so, because the medium can range again from everything from Pinterest, from any of our social platforms, to email, as you say, to writing a book, to your podcast that you're doing here today. That medium still is the message, but the words and the pictures that we frame in our service to our person that we are trying to reach, those words still matter in however which way they're framed. He's still relevant today, all these years later.
Yes, and I want to go back to one more thing you said a couple of minutes ago when you're talking about reading instructions. I've said for years that instructions, in my opinion, are written for other people who write instructions.
You're touching on a favorite topic of mine now, Bill.
You know, one of my great accomplishments in life, and I've only got 2 or 3, but and 2 of my children would be among those, but one of my great accomplishments in life was spending a full day one time putting a swing set together for my 2 daughters, following their instructions about A goes to A prime, B goes to B prime, and the entire time 12 to 15 neighborhood children standing around me saying, when's this thing going to be finished? So I echo what you say about instructions, and God bless you for urging us to have some clarity along those lines. Sharon, we've only got a couple of minutes. Tell us, please, what you are accomplishing and what we need to know about virtual conference mastery.
Oh, I'm so thrilled about this group that we've assembled, Bill. Virtual Conference Mastery is an answer to the challenges that I have seen that have emerged in this pandemic. And that is, so many of us are having to become accustomed to speaking to the little circle on our computers in order to get our messages across, whether it's to one-on-one with you on a Zoom call like this, or whether it is an employee supervisor talking to their staff, or whether it's members of the C-suite. We've got a new way of communicating, and it is online. And we've been all forced online, of course, as we all know, in the pandemic. Now, what happens next? The hybrid working solution is going to see the question asked: do we bring our employees back into the office, or do we enable the hybrid working situation, some at home, some at the office? I want to circle back and say 10 years ago, I saw this change in the journalism media industry so quickly, and I experienced it with my magazine you talked about. And that was that online advertising went online, and it left the traditional legacy media people. And too many of those publishers and media owners didn't respond quickly enough. They let it lag, and they lost their shirts. They lost their properties. They lost everything that they believed in terms of communications through, let's say, the printed medium or the broadcast medium. Fast forward 10 years ago, we've spotted this necessity to make change and make change early. So we brought together people who have Tom Bradshaw, for example, who is an expert in speech and body performance. And we have Dr. Jeremy Lukaba, who is a industrial psychology communications expert, understanding how we negotiate online. And then Trip Braden, who is a brand journalist and an expert in so many areas of business growth strategies. This team we brought together, backed up by technology people. We've all come together to say we know what the mission is here. We're doing more research as we go along and learning more about the hybrid work office. And that's what we're doing. We're helping people to learn this new world of the hybrid work office.
I've seen all of you in action, and I have great respect for your professionalism and the way that you are helping us, as you say, move into this hybrid world. Tell us, please, how to access virtual conference mastery. I know it is online, so how do we access that?
Well, the beautiful thing is we've got a lot of presence online. So the first of all would be the website, vcmastery.com.
vcmastery.com.
Yes. And then on LinkedIn, we have very strong presence on LinkedIn. I am Sharon A.M. MacLean. And we also have Thomas Bradshaw, Jeremy Lukaba, Ph.D., and Trip Braden. All have very informative LinkedIn formats. And then something that you're involved with now, Bill, which is Clubhouse. We have a presence on Clubhouse and Twitter. So under my moniker, again, Sharon MacLean or Sharon A.M. MacLean. So we are in a number of different social properties. And let's just remember vcmastery.com. Let's say that one.
Yes, and now that we've done that, thank you. Let's have your contact information. I know that people who have watched us on the YouTube video portion or heard us on the podcast portion, I know they will want to get in touch with you, Sharon. So how can we do that?
Oh, I'd love to see the emails coming in. My email address is sharon@worldgatemedia.com.
Sharon@worldgatemedia.com. Thank you so much. And Sharon, now that you've given your contact information, I'll give mine. Bill Lampton, the Biz Communication Guy. So logically, B-I-Z, bizcommunicationguy.com is my website. I invite you to go there, check my services for corporations and leaders. Get in touch with me. Let's talk about your communication problems and challenges and how I can help you find solutions to them. Thanks again so much to Sharon MacLean for being our guest today. Sharon, any closing comment?
Oh, again, what you're doing today, Bill, which is helping leaders solve their problems of communications, is so important. We need more of this, not less. So thank you very much.
Thank you. And thanks to all of you who joined us today. Be with us again next week on the Biz Communication Show. I'm your host, Bill Lampton, the Biz Communication Guy.